This is Class 3 of 4-H market swine. The range weight is from 239 pounds to 269 pounds. The first exhibitor is Daniel Verdon of Coyote Crest 4-H. Our second exhibitor is Carson Riley Gilroy of San Martin 4-H. The third exhibitor is Kylie Jordan of Pleasant Acres 4-H. The fourth exhibitor is Emily Cortez of Pacheco Pass 4-H. The fifth exhibitor is Parker Simon of Adams 4-H. The sixth exhibitor is Michael Balderas of Pacheco Pass 4-H. And our seventh exhibitor is Jacob Dubé of Adams 4-H.
We get into this second class of our 4-H market hogs, and I think the black barrow with the white socks kind of walks away with this one in terms of being the one that combines a show barrow look and still does it with all of the power and rib cage and extra width that one could ask for. I think you watch these things glide across the surface, and this is the up-headed, tall-shouldered one. He's level all the way back to his hip. He's probably the stoutest in terms of his feature, and undoubtedly the most athletic in terms of reach and grab up front, and he tracks the squarest and most flexible out of his rear skeleton. Really nice barrow to go ahead and start the class. Barrowin 2 is one that, when this guy comes at you, he's extremely impressive in terms of one that's ultra stout in his skull, huge and opened up in his chest and through his blade, extra curvature in terms of forerib and upper body shape in this one. It's just when he turns and goes away from you, one that's just a little shorter and steeper about his hip and just doesn't maintain that same caliber of balance and look and design as our winner, but one that I think's awfully nice in second. The Barrowin 3 is one that probably ranks as my second favorite from a skeletal design standpoint, one that's ultra athletic, really good in terms of balance. It's just from a cutability and terminal merit standpoint that slides him there into third for my liking. One that's a little more vague and nondescript when you study him out of the back of his shoulder. Gets a bit plainer in his shape as he directly goes away from you. If we could just lean this guy up and free him of fat there through his flank and his lower body and just see him hardened up from a muscle shape standpoint, I think this guy easily slides into the top pair the way they are today, just a bit plainer and softer in his overall look. The Barrowin 4 is about as bulky and heavy-duty as any in class. He is the densest in terms of skull, forearm, rib cage, and just true power and dimension when you study him behind his blade and back into his hip. Unfortunately, it just kind of works to his detriment when you study these things in motion. He's one that probably is a little rocked forward in the angle of his shoulder. He's one that's hock maybe ties there in the outer plane of his stifle, makes him just want to roll on the outside of his foot and just get a bit excessive in his width going away, but one that's loaded full of power, rib cage, and just true muscle merit to sit in 4. Young man in 5's driving a really nice off-belted gilt there in the dirt pin. One that you love the upper portion of her skeleton, really big bladed, lots of fresh shape feeding out of the backside of her shoulder, really bold in terms of her upper rib cage. My only issue on this one is how she just doesn't maintain her width up high to the surface. Doesn't matter if she's driving at you or going away. She's one that maybe wants to just close up in her lower skeleton, and she just reads a shot too dry in terms of her softness her rib and depth back in there into her flank. I think one that just needs a shade more fat and a shade more productivity in terms of depth of body and just lower width through her skeleton, but a really nice gilt. The Barrowin 6 is one that's nicely presented today in terms of skin and hair coat and really good in terms of just showmanship and getting this guy around the ring. He's one for me that's a lot like the gilt in front of him. As impressive as he is to study up high in terms of fresh muscle shape and extra shape to his rib, he's just pretty disappointing when we study him down low. He gets pretty closed up in his chest and concaves there in his knee, and he gets a little too narrow for my liking when he directly goes away. If we could just open this guy up in terms of his lower skeleton and just see him a lot stoutened up in terms of his feature and his forearm and his hind leg, I could see this guy getting up the lineup. And then we get to the tricolored barrow in 7. He certainly doesn't find his way down the lineup from lack of muscle and power. I really like this one in terms of just his body shape, his extra spread and mass that he works up high. Really big and powerful when you get behind him. It's just when you step off to the side and study him on the go that he wants to just kind of fall down the lineup, in my opinion, in terms of just balance and skeletal quality. To start at the ground, he's one that's a little upright in his shoulder and laborious in terms of his length of stride up front. He wants to push up in the center portion of his spine, which consequently makes him read steeper and shorter about his hip. If we could just fix this guy in his shoulder angle, relax him in his spine, and just see him a little bit more mobile out of his hip and hind leg, I could see him working up a bit higher. We could probably just clean him up in terms of his jawline and just see him more level in terms of his overall top line and design, but a nice barrow to round out.